Kevin, call the roll. Call the
right.
meeting order.
Get the recorder started. Good. Chair, Harry Meyer.
Yep.
Vice Chair, Jerry Delbo. Jim Bloomrick, S to be excused. Alderman Joe Moore.
Present.
Melanie Parma, S to be excused. Matt Schuler, S to be excused. And Tom Weber.
Here.
As for a motion on the agenda, is before us?
Move to approve.
Motion by, is it Joe? Yeah. Second by Tom. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those carried. New business, consideration of possible action to approve a term sheet with TMD Properties LLC for the redevelopment of the JBS Packland Packing Site at 2850 University Avenue. Kevin?
All right, so this was at our last meeting. We had some discussion about a proposal to redevelop the former Packland Packing Site. Proposal presented by Todd Villers of TMD Properties, looking at, one, tearing down the existing structures on the site, doing some remediation, environmental remediation with that, and then constructing new apartment units, 364 units in total, over a phase of 5 years. Proposal, some TIF funding to help fund the demolition and environmental cleanup, and then also to provide some incentive to get the development moving, rolling along in the form of a PAYCO. With that, I think we had a pretty good, intensive, and extensive discussion on this project and proposal. We talked about some things in terms of negotiating, going back and forth with the developer, and since that time, staff's had been in contact with the developer and then relayed some of those points of information. With that, I think the developer who is here today and would like to speak in addressing some of the terms that were brought up and discussed and provide some answers to them. I think the developer is looking for, there's been sunk costs into this project, and we'd just like some direction in terms of, we've got a term sheet before us, are we going to approve and move ahead, or not, and just be able to make a decision with that. I'd be happy to answer any quick follow-up questions. Otherwise, the developer is here. And we'll be able to address the RDA. There's some exhibits that they provided here, a site plan that talks a little bit about the site and maybe some of the constraints with it. Again, the design standards that they're looking for in terms of some of the questions that were brought up. And then also a market study, which another question raised about just the adequacy of housing units out in that area.
I got a question.
That's for a motion opening. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Real quick. We don't have a term sheet here. Were there any changes from the original proposal, or is it the same?
Right now, it is the same.
Okay.
I think there's some consideration, and the developer can address in terms of one of the things the RDA was looking for is additional commercial with potential. It was labeled phase 6 on the map, and phase 5, basically the northwest corner of the site. There's a site plan that shows maybe some other products there. The developer felt that commercial was not the best or appropriate use for that, but is willing to consider maybe some other types of uses in there, and he'd be able to directly express what some of those may be. Right. But other than that, the term sheet was not included again because the term sheet did not change.
Make a motion to open the meeting.
Motion by Gary, second by Tom. No leaving public discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Todd?
Hello, once again.
Hi.
Happy to be back in front of you. As again, my name is Todd DeVillers. I'm with RE Commercial. My partner is Mark Veris with RE Commercial, and Paul and Jim DeLears with DeLears Construction couldn't be here today, but they are also our partners in this project. At our last RDA meeting, there was concerns brought up that with the commercial land, the possibility for ownership of residential, single-family homes dispersed amongst the project. We looked at all of these things that you suggested. And, be honest with you, we must have, 100 different versions of this site plan. This has been nurtured, before it got to you, over years. And it all boils down to financing and getting financing on the project, and our lender has been, along with us, in the nurturing of this site plan. And, to bring a residential component in here, I just, given the topography and how we're phasing this and building on both elevations, the top and the side, to bring and sprinkle in an ownership residential component, it's not something that I think is, conducive to a successful project, as well as our lender will not lend on it. So,
That's pretty important.
yeah, and so what we have is a commitment to do a multifamily project, similar to, what, we had presented last time. I have on the screen here, the site plan, which shows the first, 5 phases, with phase 5 being highlighted. That's about 5 acres in gross acres, probably 4 acres net usable. And, I'd love to have a nice commercial project happen there, a medical office, a retail junior box or something of that nature. And, but we don't control the 1 acres in front of us. And then nor do we control the 3 acres. We do control the 1 acre. And, and we've had discussions with that owner who owns the 1.8 acres, and we'd love to, have some kind of joint development. But, his land is large enough that he could go and sell his land individually, develop it, and, I'd be glad to keep it, for the next 5 years as, open for a commercial development. But if, he builds an auto zone, that drops, our commercial potential dramatically. That phase alone, we estimate it's going to kick in about $75,000 in taxes a year. It's about, $3.4 million of assessment. So, I'll be glad to take that out of the equation, but that's what you're giving up. And, would a commercial project, come in there and offset that? Possibly. And we'd be willing to wait for it and, see if we can get a higher medical office use there. But a junior box retail, I just don't think that's probably what you're going to see there. Along those out parcels, you might see, some restaurants or things of that nature, but all those sites are large enough to accommodate, their own retail development as standalone sites. So, it's right now a white sheet of paper. We could do a lot with, that, 7-acre site if we had it. I'd be glad to, spearhead that and, work with the adjacent property owners and see if we can come up with something, during, the next 5 years. But if the guy up front decides, hey, I want to go ahead and just, build a automobile dealership or whatever, I want it to come back, or be able to, roll into, that phase if, commercial is no longer an applicable use. So I don't know how we, make an agreement on that, but, I guess I'm here to also say, at the end of the day, if, you want me to just land bank that as commercial, and knowing that's probably not the highest and best use of the site, I'd be glad to land bank it just to move forward with this project. Because I think, we're at that point right now at, we're looking close to, $475,000 in real estate taxes for this project. And, that's, I think, what should be focused on. And, the plan itself, even though it's different, it was still nurtured by, the constituents in this area, because of the fact that, this plan, originated from a grassroots campaign, which started with the University Avenue Brownfield grant, which was like a 4-year process, meeting with business owners, residences, and, neighborhood committees. So, and that kind of formed with the engineering firm, it escapes me now, that the city hired for that, that Brownfield grant. Stantec. That's kind of what was the footprint to start the TIF process. So, there isn't a development site in Brown County that has so much information, put together on it as to what should be happening to it. So, I would like to come to you today to say, we are ready to go forward. We hope the concession that we made, is, satisfactory, and, but we're still anxious to move forward with this plan.
Todd, as a private owner, is he interested in selling it? Evidently.
Yeah, he has it on the market, and he has for the past, 5 years, like everyone else, on a lot of this other land in this area. But now with Festival, but Festival has 2 or 3 out parcels there that are probably more strategically located next to, the retail, but, forever is a long time, and, but, I think that you're gonna see stuff happen around Festival. Will something happen here? It could very well happen, but yet it could very well be that in the next 15 years it's still sitting vacant. So you have to make a decision. Are you willing to roll the dice on that, or, give up all those taxes? But we still think there's enough commercial there to, be absorbed for the next 20 years.
Kevin, if my memory serves me correctly, this is kind of in line with what was dictated in the strategic university plan. We did that university plan. I don't see a lot different what was in there than what's being recommended here.
In the University Avenue plan, it called for primarily residential on this site.
Okay.
I think throughout, there's been talk of mixed use and getting commercial in. I think on this site, the intent was to have commercial as close to university as possible. I think I understand the developer's concerns about being set back from university in terms of just pure retail.
Yes.
It's tougher. It's not to say that professional service or office, that's more of a destination, it's not a
Yes.
drive-by, couldn't work here. I think though with that, the acreage that the developer does not own up to the northwest is critical to making this piece successful.
Yes.
With that though, at the end of the day, the primary use on this site was residential.
Other than that, from a zoning and building codes perspective, this fits in?
The site currently, right now, is zoned industrial. In the redevelopment plan, it calls for the long-term land use to be mixed use or residential, and I can pull up that. But it would not, the applicant would have to apply for a rezoning based on the adoption of the corridor plan that goes into our comp plan. Our rezoning request to that type of use would be supported by our staff.
From a building codes perspective, do you see anything online here with our building codes?
We ran through, when did you come to tech review team? Probably about a month ago.
Yeah.
And ran through just, around different departments between public works and
Yes.
water and
Yes.
fire and planning and all around the table. And, basically concerns that were brought up have been addressed through this plan. Now, of course, until we get a formal site
Yeah.
plan and go through that process, but we like to take people through and just look if there's any major issues that may show up, get those addressed sooner than later, and we believe that they have.
Okay.
Kevin, there was a gentleman here that indicated a high number of vacancies, apartment vacancies in the area.
Can I address that?
Yeah, and so one of the things, we looked at, 2 pieces of information. One, from a city perspective, we had Baker Tilly do a housing study for us. In 2012, we updated it in 2015. It basically showed within the ring, which is 172, 41, 43, that there was an immediate demand for 400 to 600 market rate apartment units. Many of those being downtown, but within the ring there was room for growth. So in terms of there was an unmet demand out there. Mr. DeVillers had also, I think, done his own market numbers, and I think he sent me
Yeah, I
those.
guess I do have
And
that
if you want to
chart.
refer to those, you can just also discuss from his perspective where he might see the numbers being at. And I think this is the form that you
Yes.
sent? Okay.
This is information gathered from a LoopNet and CoStar. This is CoStar right here, which is their data, which they track all the multifamily projects in Brown County, or throughout Wisconsin for that matter. And right now in a 3-mile radius, which is probably 75% of the east side of Green Bay, we've got we have 75 available units right now available for lease out of 2,576 total units in that 3-mile radius. The average over that 5-year period was 2593 with an 84 available average. But right now we're hovering around 3.3% vacancy, which is an extremely low vacancy, but Brown County historically has always had a very low vacancy. If you go back, there was a spike back when the market took a tank, but even at that time, I don't think it got above 5.
Also, Todd, I would expect that a lot of the vacant units are marginal or below.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah,
What are you basing that off of?
Yeah.
This survey was based on a 5-star basis, and this is the 5, 4, 3, and 2 star. And of that, on a percentage basis, most of them are 2 and 3, 4 stars. Most of them, the 4s and 5s, those were considered newer Class A type projects. I mean, there just isn't as many in Brown County for this survey, that draws from that, market sample.
Does this take any account of on-campus housing as well?
No.
part of the process, they'd have to go through planning commission as well, right, Kevin?
And minimal for a rezoning of the property, because right now it's currently zoned
So there's not
industrial.
going to be no issues there other than rezoning. Right.
Correct. And depending on, what the rezoning type would be here, and, what we would, in best case, look for a straight rezoning to one of our existing land classes. If there's other things that we wanted to try and configure, whether part of it got zoned, commercial or some other type of use in it for that quadrant, that could be part of it. There's also a possibility to do a plain unit development for this if you're looking for some other things or other, design standards. I think there's two opportunities to do those things. Sometimes we've done them through the avenue of the development agreement and calling for it there. Sometimes we've done it through, conditional use permits or plain unit developments.
Okay.
At this point, again, we're talking terms.
Yeah, strictly terms.
But I think, those are good things to consider, and if you want to make part of the motion in terms of moving forward with drafting the development agreement to make sure that we specifically include certain things, I think that is appropriate.
Todd, could you give us a little timeline on raising the buildings and when you might be ready for new construction?
As soon as I get approval, I'm going to be tearing down the buildings.
I think when it comes to the term sheet and it comes to the TIF, the $1 million up front, I think makes a lot of sense. It probably isn't such a hard sell when you start talking about the environmental issues and the tear down. I think the $4.5 million on the back end is a harder sell on a for-profit, the amount of profit, revenue that this would generate, once fully leased. What do you foresee that $4.5 million being applied toward in this project? I mean, it's basically,
It'll be
it's a hillside in a natural area.
It'll be environmental, raising the buildings, stormwater retention, utilities, site work and hill contouring, not including just the face that you're seeing on the north side, but the south side, because if you look, it's all jagged rocks and whatnot. So the whole hill has to be recontoured, and street and grinding up some of the asphalt on site. Right now, even though $1 million is the number that Kevin and I had agreed to, our cost to demo this building is going to be pushing $2 million. And right now, most of all this cost that we're putting into this is going to be spent in the next 3 years. So, I'm getting this, $4.5 million over the next 20 years. The present value calculation of that's about 2.5 million, so my entire package is about $3.5 million for this whole development, which is about, based on our cost and the net present value, is about 16% of, a TIF, if you want to put it in a TIF percentage, way to look at it. So, I mean, we get all this money on the backside, but, that dollar I'm getting 20 years from now, I'm spending that money today, in all these upfront costs. And all these costs are going to be TIF eligible. We're using it to, get the site ready for development, just because of all the work that has to be done.
You had talked about the jagged rocks and stuff on the backside of the hill. Has there been a DNR analysis, or, I imagine there's a lot more environmental analysis that needs to be done to get approval
No.
to start messing with the hill?
No, we've got, the hill is fill in old streets, so we've done soil borings for where the buildings are gonna be, and, but, it's more of a, they have a wall there that, they use to dump the manure over, and it's just not safe to have a 20-foot drop-off, so, we're gonna knock that retaining wall down, have to recontour it, so, it just doesn't become a safety hazard. It's a steep elevation from the top of that hill down, and, it's all inclusive to this entire site, so, but, it may seem like a lot, when you're talking about, how many dollars someone's gonna collect after 20 years, but, I look at it, on a net present value, and, I think 16% based on the, the total assessment right now, you're saying that I'm gonna create is about, $21 million. My costs are gonna be about $31 million, so, my cost, I know you're assessing that at what the costs are, but, I'm not even getting credit for that, so, we're gonna be, taking a lot of risk here, because we're building a product that, quite frankly, isn't on this east side of Green Bay, and, but I think that it's a location, and if you do it right, it'll raise the entire community. And, within a mile radius of this, you have the lowest, medium income of anywhere in that whole area. I'll guarantee you, when this thing is built, we'll raise the median income by at least 10% within that mile radius of the festival foods. So, if looking at how that east side has done over the past 10 years, it's struggled, but, it's projects like this that's gonna, revamp it.
So with that guarantee of raising the median income 10%, if that doesn't happen, then you can pull the TIF?
Well, I can sit down with you and I can show you the numbers, and I think you'll agree with me that it's a pretty safe assumption.
300 units would do that,
Well, we would represent 10% of the population in that market. So I'll guarantee, that, I'm just saying,
Sure.
I think our tenants are gonna be, above the median income.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin, you come through with the assessment?
Sure, well, and maybe just, I want to answer Aldermore's point a little more, just in terms of cost and TIF eligible cost and reasons for, putting the money where it's at. In terms of estimates that have been provided for demolition, the asbestos abatement, the actual takedown of the structure and relocation of utilities, as Mr. DeViller said, is about $2 million. Of this, there's about $2 million in infrastructure work, which you talk about the roads. They're private roads, but they're still roads, utilities, stormwater, all those different types of infrastructure. With that, something that we have also pushed for is, hard cost on that urban design, estimated at about 10,000 units. So depending whether or not you counted those in or not, without it, it's about 4 million hard cost. With it, it's about 7.6 million hard cost, again, present day value. Like we've done in many other development agreements before, I think especially in upfront TIF, it's important to specify for what project costs will be reimbursed or used for. In this case too, again, with the, pay-go TIF, because those expenses are in there, if the, you seek putting that in the development agreement, Identifying the qualifying expenditures that they are for. The developer would only be reimbursed for things that they could prove that they spent money on. And I think that helps, both protect the city and then provides clarity to the developer in terms of, well, this is what you said it's going to cost to build. I spent the money on this, and again, this is what the TIF is for, is providing that infrastructure to get it up to a buildable point.
With the amount of, Dr. Vonk, with the amount of investment that the city's already put into that area, and with the growth that you see from the VA hospital now and with Festival, future business park for Brown County, or what they decide to do out there, do you see $21 million assessment on 30 acres being a great value? Because I just don't see that. I think that if anything was to move forward, we have to have a guaranteed assessment. And even if it's not in the term sheet, it would have to be in a development agreement.
Sure. I guess in terms of the ultimate value, the new value would probably be, when all in, closer to 24, almost 25. That is coming from our assessor's office, and I think you've seen that, generally they come in conservatively, which I think we're okay with. I think in terms of how you want to structure it, to what Mr. DeVillers has said, their costs for this. Ultimately, that assessment is also going to be, looking at, what are the rent rolls and what is the net operating income, and how does that justify things here. I think one of the things, and again, if you'd like to consider to protect the city's investment, is that, if we're talking about market rate housing here, that we put in some stipulations to provide for market rate housing, that if it would fall below a certain level, and then they challenge the assessment and it goes below that, they'd be hurting themselves in the PAYGO situation. But I think also just from the value perspective, we're trying to raise the bar of rents out in that area. So I think that is something, if you'd wanted to propose, I think we discussed a little bit, about those costs, and I think the developer feels, comfortable as far as how much they're putting into. It's a little bit tricky about the guaranteed assessment because I don't, or the developer doesn't control that. But if we also want to talk about relating that back to, minimum construction costs or hard money in or something like that, I think those are appropriate. Or, if you want to go for a hard assessment, it's ultimately up to you.
And we believe the assessment's going to be higher, and that's great, but we're not going to get any more money because the assessment's going to be higher because we're capped.
Right.
And instead of capping out in year 19, we might cap out in year 16 because you've got higher taxes. So, that's fine if that's something that, would make you guys feel comfortable.
All right, any other questions? Thanks, Todd, appreciate it.
All right, guys, thank you very much. What?
Was there a hand somewhere?
Oh, no, there's other people here. Just
Is there any other questions from the audience? None. Oh, all right.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to make a couple comments. I have to be somewhere at 2:15, but I'll come back later. But, I'm reflecting what Mr. Moore said. I don't think it's a difficult problem for the council to participate in helping clean up the site and making it useful for development. But I don't think you can set precedences after precedence after precedence of subsidizing housing with TIF. Why wouldn't you do it for people that are willing to build a $300,000 house or more? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't know what it does to the playing field of other people who develop properties. In my history on the council, every time somebody was developing an area, they were putting in the streets, the lighting, developing the lots themselves. They weren't coming here asking for money for that sort of thing. There had to be a real hardship, which I think there is some hardship involved in, the cleanup of the site and all that. But beyond that, I don't think there should be a subsidy. And I'm not so sure we should have more apartments. They fill up, maybe they make vacancies in others. I don't know how to comment about the vacancy rate. There's probably people smarter than me about that. I can't speak to the accuracy or anything of that. We had at least a gentleman at the last meeting that said he thought there was like 250 vacancies in the area, and it doesn't look like, this is nowhere near that, so it looks like, according to Mr. DeVillers, that there really is not that much vacancy at all. Although I know we have, what, the metro, someone told me is about 20% occupied right now, is that correct?
50%.
50%? Okay. You know, there's only so many higher-end apartments, et cetera. But to start and consider subsidizing apartment units, I mean, I know some of it's been downtown, but that has not been the history of our city. And I think it's, I applaud the people who want to do something there, and coming and asking for help to clean up the site is certainly within my realm of approval. But anything beyond that, it would have to be in line more or less with what every other developer that develops an apartment unit would get, which I think in most cases is not anything unless there's a hardship. So I think you're doing precedents in doing this. I think we really have to ask, do we want more apartments in Green Bay? Or would we like more single-family houses? If you're really going to hand out the TIF, then consider doing it for people who are willing to buy, put higher-level houses in that area. I think that's what Green Bay needs more of, more home ownership, not places to rent. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is John Van Dyke, 2830 Curry Court, Suite 4, Green Bay. I'm here today representing the Tuning Companies. The Tuning Companies is an owner and developer and manager of over 2,500 apartment units in northeastern Wisconsin. Tuning Companies was founded 30 years ago in northeast Green Bay. Our corporate office is on University Avenue and has been for 30 years. We own and manage 500 apartment units within the University Avenue corridor. We know this neighborhood, we live this neighborhood every day, and we can reliably state that this area of Green Bay is not in need of, nor can it absorb an additional 360 apartments. Dr. Vonk talked about a study that was done, and I believe you said that that range included downtown Green Bay, and a lot of those units were in downtown Green Bay. If you're like me and you lived and raised in Green Bay, downtown Green Bay to that area is a 10-minute drive. You can drive anywhere in Green Bay in 10 minutes. People live in this area where they want to live because it's easy to get from one place to another. So to say that there's a need in a corridor that includes downtown Green Bay and you're incorporating that into your 400-unit consideration and you're projecting that all the way out to University Avenue, it's two different markets. And somebody that wants to live in downtown Green Bay is not the same person that wants to live in that area. This development, which I believe will be the largest single apartment development in all of Brown County, will have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood by creating vacancies and reducing investment in existing properties. A short drive up Humboldt Road will quickly show you how too many apartments in one area does to a neighborhood, and this development isn't going to help that. It's only going to make it worse. It's going to create vacancies because if you throw that many more apartments in there, like I said, we live it every day. What you see up on the board is we don't report our information to that particular agency. So that information is somewhat suspect in the fact that if we have an apartment development and we got 10 vacancies, we don't go into the market or go to this service and say, hey, we got 10 vacancies. You don't necessarily want the market to know you've got 10 vacancies or 15 vacancies, because when the person walks in the door to rent an apartment, they quickly point that out to you and then they want to negotiate rate. So you might report that you have 1 2-bedroom unit available, you might report that you have 2 2-bedroom units available, but that information is somewhat susceptible to interpretation. In addition to that, I just want to point out a couple of things. There's a lot of talk about site prep. Tuning Companies has developed 15 sites in northeastern Wisconsin. We've developed 3 sites that are $25 million or more. We didn't get any aid for roads. We didn't get any aid for infrastructure, for grading. We We spend over $1 million on every one of those developments to put those things in. That's part of the cost of development. And it is the cost of development in every community. The other part that I want to bring out is if we're talking about rents, I think it's just important to have some facts. Our most successful probably development that we have is our Canterbury Creek Apartments off of Highway 29 out toward western Green Bay. It's easy for me to sit here and say, look, we can get $1,000 a month for an apartment, and we can. The fact is that we only get that on 10 units out of 290 units at that development. So only 3.4% of our units in that development, which is the best one we have, can pull $1,000 a month. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment at that development is $758. The average rent for a two-bedroom apartment at that development is $912. You will not pull those kind of rents in East Green Bay, I'll tell you that right now. Our property, Cedar Lake, we've got 3 properties in that area, which I think our Cedar Lake property is probably one of the best in that area. Right now, our average one-bedroom rent is $672. Our average two-bedroom rent is $766. So I'm not quite sure how the developer feels he's going to walk in and all of a sudden be able to charge $1,000 a month for an apartment. It's not going to happen, and what's going to happen is that those apartments are then going to be rented for an amount less than that, which is then going to put pressure on the rents that we can charge, which is going to lower ours, which then is going to have a trickle-down effect for the rest of the entire neighborhood as rents start coming down and property values decrease. That's what happens. Apartment people don't let apartments sit empty. They figure out how to rent them, and in order to do that, you lower rents to get people attracted to there. The last thing I just want to make a point of is there's also been some talk about a 5-year period of time for this development. That's not a long period of time. Again, Tuning Companies does this year in and year out. 6 to 7 years on our 300-unit apartment developments is what's normal. It takes that long to bring them on board and to lease them up. And if you're going to throw 360, 370 units on the market in a 5-year span of time, that's not a long period of time. So I just want to point out some facts. We are not against development in that area. By all means, anything probably is better than the Packerland packing site that's sitting there today. But if you can mix multiple levels or multiple cost apartments there and have some that might appeal to students and some that appeal to the high end, if you can do that, then I'm not quite sure why you can't mix higher end apartments and single family residences or condos. I think we can do better with that property. Maybe we can put 150 apartments in there and mix it with houses. Maybe this developer doesn't want to do that, but that's not to say there's not another developer out there that would. And in addition to that, look at the entire area. There's a large parcel of property that lies just to the east of this property, which is owned by Frankenthal's. What do they do with their property? What stops them tomorrow? If you're going to put 370 apartment units up on that hill and you got a piece of property right next door, what are they going to ask for? The only thing they can do at that point is because they're stuck between Baird's Creek Park and 370 apartment units, you're going to have to put another pile of apartments on that property. And what are you going to offer them to do the same thing? I agree with Supervisor Zima. The cleanup is one thing. The rest of the incentive is quite another. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Motion to return regular to business?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Joe, and second by Tom. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I just wanted to also, Alderman John Vanderleest had also emailed me. He was not able to be at the meeting, but I just wanted a statement to be read in the record, whether it's open or closed. I'd like my comments given to the RDA committee below. I'm not able to attend the RDA meeting at 1:30 p.m. With regards to the Packer Lane packing development, it's been my knowledge that multifamily projects have not and should not receive significant TIF subsidies. Multifamily developments are profitable projects for developers already. I would support TIF assistance for demolition costs at the current Packer Lane site. I question how much the city should subsidize multifamily housing. Demolition costs of the site seem fair. I do not know where the negotiations are. I request that TIF assistance for the Packer Lane packing development would be set at demolition costs only. Alderman John Vanderleest. So I just want to get that on the record. He had emailed, not able to attend with her.
I'll make a motion to deny the term sheet. To deny the term sheet.
We have a motion from Joe to deny the term sheet.
Second for discussion.
For discussion, yes.
Yeah, for discussion. Do we want to go into closed session? Is there anything that is of value there?
I mean, if you'd like to, discuss, other options, I think Alderman Moore made a motion to deny. If there's other things they would like to say in terms of tweaking some of the terms or providing another offer out there, I think that is in our purview to negotiate something, and we can talk through numbers or any additional questions, but, I guess this.
This term sheet as presented,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you on that, as a second, but I just want, a little question. The last time when the gentleman brought up the apartment vacancies, et cetera, and what's been done here, I think somebody mentioned contacting the association, the apartment association for any of their data or records. Had that been done?
That was not completed.
I don't know if it's, well, it's certainly beneficial. But I guess that's, I second the motion. I can just carry that forward if you want and vote, or is there further discussion?
well, I would just encourage that we just, deny the term sheet as it's presented, and then if the developer and our staff would like to work on something different. I think, the general discussion here has been the $4.5 million on the back end that is not supported, that I think developers made clear that he needs.
Well,
So I think that's where we're at a standstill.
And I think there's ample concern over, I guess I've never been against precedents, but precedents in this avenue. I mean, I remember when Hobart started the tiffing of residential, and, it was like minor shockwaves going through the communities of, wow, now we're going to start tiffing residential developments, et cetera. And I will say that their foray into it was substantially different, and it's a whole community that they were tiffing, basically. But it's still the question, is that the purpose of TIF? I would agree with, find myself agreeing with Alderman Zima.
If we,
But,
you're saying,
but for the land and that's fine. I think you have to start someplace. A developer has to have a clean piece of land, but, yeah.
I guess in general, what that means then is that we're gonna be, have more TIF dollars up front, because it's gonna cost more than $1 million to clean that property up, and that's fine. So then the TIF as you go is what we like to use. We wouldn't be using that.
Yeah, but based on the term sheet, that it doesn't matter what the upfront change in money, it's the back end that is needed.
Right.
Based on the development, and I think that's where the crux
I'm just saying, new
comes.
term sheet would be more, we're gonna clean it up, it's gonna be more dollars up front, and that's fine. Because it sounds like everybody's in favor of the cleanup part of it, and that's, and I think that's fair as well.
I think that's a completely different discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have to go in closed session and talk about that.
Yeah, and I guess it's, up to Alderman Moore or you, whether you want to, put something out there now, or just completely scrap and start over. I mean, that's your purview to move forward with either direction.
Yeah, I wouldn't be prepared to put anything out at this point in time. I don't know. Alderman Moore has even given consideration or what he
No.
proposed, so
Well, I'd like to take a vote on it.
just take the vote.
Okay.
My second's good. No, we're voting
On
to
this?
just
On
vote
Joe's?
on his motion, and my second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second then, Joe Moore, second by Tom Weber, that we deny the development agreement. Want a roll call vote?
No,
No, your voice will change.
that's fine. All those in favor, Steve?
Call.
Pardon?
Just ask for the vote.
Yeah, vote. I'll ask for the motion.
Yes. And
So now I vote just to
Unanimous.
deny.
The aye is to deny.
Yeah.
3 to 1.
Did you take a vote?
Yep.
Oh,
I didn't hear a vote.
I hear all in favor.
All in favor?
All in favor, motion to approve, Joe's.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
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 All right. Number 2, request by Alderman Moore for reconsideration of possible action on request by KPH North of the LLC for a $500,000 gap loan for redevelopment of the hotel north of the 204 North Adams Street.
Do you want to
Sure.
start?
Yeah.
You may,
Oh, I'm sorry.
So before you go into this portion, the reconsideration has to be taken care of first.
So we have to make a motion to
This is
reconsider,
the motion to reconsider.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah.
because a vote was taken at the last RDA meeting, so we need a motion to reconsider.
I'll make that motion to
It was
reconsider.
unanimous vote, right? So we
Correct.
don't have to worry about the reconsideration.
All right?
I second.
So,
Motion by Joe, second by Tom to reconsider the action on the request for KBH Garthon Hotel, right? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm carried.
okay, so now this is back on the table for reconsideration, and Alderman Moore is the one who wanted to reconsider. I guess if you want to speak to it.
Sure.
I'll hand out.
Yeah, I think some more information had come forward since we had taken the vote. And in my discussions that I've had with the developer, the loan isn't needed right now. They've actually asked to withdraw the request. So I think the only action we really need to take today is to receive this and place it on file.
All right?
So I would make
Is that a
that motion.
motion?
Second.
Second by Tom, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 3, consideration of possible action on the request to purchase 159 North Maple Avenue using neighborhood enhancement funds. Sure. Oh, you gotta be kidding.
I just snuck in there.
Right in there.
Well, you got it in time. You got under just in time.
All right, so this property was purchased originally by an owner occupant in 2007. He planned on converting its multifamily use back to single family.
How many units are in there? Do you know right now?
There's 4 that are reported, there's 1 upstairs too, so there's 5 that are
Yeah.
technically in there. Let's see here, so the owner eventually walked away from the property, and it's been sitting vacant for at least the last 3 years. We tried to contact the owner so we could possibly negotiate a sale of this property. Finally, this last fall, it went to foreclosure, so we were able to negotiate with the bank. And we're thinking we have 2 options for this property. One, once we acquire it, we could put it out for RFP, as we have with other properties. Try to find a private developer to rehabilitate the property. That way, if we had the control of the property, we would, be able to say what goes into it, what kind of terms we could put on the development agreement. Another option that staff had been talking about in recent meetings is possibly doing a larger neighborhood project, similar to the Adopt-A-Home program that we've done, except with this one, the RDA would be in charge of running the larger program, using, looking at possibly partnering with larger corporate sponsors and the bid districts and local volunteers, kind of to use this as a catalyst project for that neighborhood. So this is a property that's highly visible, right over in the Broadway district. 105
Where are Cholos at this time? Where's NeighborWorks and something like this? Have you talked about that?
It's on the MLS.
We're thinking this, I don't know if we're really thinking of it as more of a subsidized project, more of a market rate for the neighborhood.
Do we want this down?
No.
No.
We're looking to acquire.
Asking for
Right.
approval.
Neighborhood enhancement funds.
And how do we
We'd be using neighborhood enhancement funds. Possibly with that, the larger project, we'd be maybe putting some more neighborhood enhancement funds into just eliminating the initial blight from the property. I know it needs a new roof, so in order to save, you've seen some of the pictures up there, there's some neat architecture in this property. So in order to save that, we kind of want to put, evaluate what we would have to put into it and probably come back with that number, but put some money into it just to save the property.
Ken, the second option is a lot of work, right?
It would be a lot of work, but I think it would be a neat project for that neighborhood to kind of spark something around there.
Give me a flavor for that. I'm still a little confused with the second. You know, one property here, and you're talking about would you explain it a little bit to me, what your vision is?
Like the potential of like the partnership project,
Yeah.
or, I mean, because really the property could be purchased by someone who had the resources to make it a single family, owner occupied. So that's that's a possibility, but let's say we've got this on the market and we don't have any offers on it. I could see this being a partnership project where we work with the on-Broadway folks, we work with the Fort Howard neighborhood, we work with some banks. So we look at what needs to be done to restore this. Maybe it's a duplex situation, because it's owned office residential there. You know what I mean? So we look at more of a restoration project.
If we put this out on an RFP, can you put a proposal in?
Could, who, like me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Our staff, could our staff put a proposal in toward this project as well and put it out on an RFP to see
Well, I don't know.
what kind, I mean, neighborhoods may want to come in with something on their request for proposal.
Oh,
and
it, absolutely.
A private
they
developer may
may.
want to come in as well, and then we've got some options to look at.
That's what we do when we do the RFP, is we kind of, we basically list out what we'd like to see done with the property.
Sure.
You know, you have to maintain the historical integrity, those types of things. So NeighborWorks may very well apply, private owner may. You know, that's open to anyone. at
Use
that
is
point.
only gonna allow 2-family though, right?
I don't think we
No,
want,
I think,
I don't know if we
Well,
want to
it's
go
not
more than
continuous
3
use,
months.
isn't the overlay OR?
It's office
it is
residential,
office
right?
residential, correct, so.
Okay, but for the residential uses, is that gonna open it up, then you could go to a 4-unit under the,
It's been vacant for over
Use?
3 years, it's
well,
reverted back
that,
to.
yeah, that would be
R1.
if there was a,
Well, it's OR.
It is OR, so,
actually
but I
OR.
think that's where then, if we had the control over it, we
Yeah.
wouldn't want it to go back to
And if I
more.
could speak maybe from an on-Broadway perspective,
Yeah.
this aligns really well with our Love Here, Live Here campaign. We currently are in discussions with 5 to 6 different property owners in this immediate neighborhood, including several properties on this same block. You know, it's kind of like you have to have that catalyst project that's going to jumpstart something. And right now, you're talking about a neighborhood that has a lot of neglect, a lot of multifamily units that we'd like to see converted back to homeowner occupied. And we think that this project, falling under the city control, would really help that piece of it. Again, it's that first project that just starts the domino effect. And so if we can see this project go through, have the city be in more control to ensure that this gets converted back to a single family, it puts us in a better position to bring some closure to some of the other negotiations that we're having on some of these other properties. I mean, we feel very strongly about the need to, I mean, the corridor of on Broadway, when you look over the last 20 years, on the commercial side has done really well. The residential side has not kept pace. And so this is where we want to be able to step in as an organization, because we know the residents in that neighborhood support that commercial corridor. And so we want to put ourselves in a position where we can ensure that, you know, the types of development that's going on in the neighborhood is complementing what we're trying to do in the commercial side as well. So we would love the city to look at this as part of that
and
campaign.
looking at, your desire is truly, forget the 2-family, 4-family, is a single family.
We would prefer to see single family, and the other properties that we're currently talking to property owners about are also multifamily units that we want to see converted back to single family.
We have agreement on this price with the seller?
That's what it's listed for in the MLS.
Oh,
Right.
okay. I make a motion to approve the purchase of 159 North Vehicle Avenue for $42,000 using neighborhood enhancement funds.
Yeah, I'll second that for discussion, we still need to know what we're going to do with it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
What are we gonna do?
I'm certainly open to on Broadway having this as a catalyst project. Maybe we can bring the current people in there to make it a showcase for the rest of the neighbors to take a look at. To see this is what you're, you know, so I mean, I would fully support the city partnering with on Broadway to convert this to single family and have this be a catalyst showcase style home.
How much square footage do we have there?
You're looking
I
at,
think you.
3,000 plus.
yeah, about
Yeah.
3,500 square
So
feet.
okay, so 3,500 square feet, single-family home.
Big.
Big, in that neighborhood, price tag, when we get it done, are we gonna draw a single family to a 3,500 square foot home?
Well, you look a couple blocks back, like on Oakland, and I mean, you've got some pretty big houses. This just kind of spreads that a little bit, you know, spreads the neighborhood a little bit.
Well, I think it's worth a try, Tom, initially, because.
Oh, I love the catalyst idea.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love, but I just question, are we going someplace that we're not gonna come back from? You know, 3,500 square feet, that's a big home, so you're asking, you know, the taxes are gonna be appropriate, the maintenance, you know, utilities. Your buyer is gonna wanna come into that neighborhood. And is this the right catalyst to go single-family right away? Or do we do it in such a way that if we you really can't come back to, a multifamily, but not 4, not 5, duplex only or something of that nature.
Well, today we certainly could approve the purchase of the property and have staff come back with some alternative recommendations, so.
Oh, sure, but he had just done this for discussion, we just,
Okay.
I think that would be a good idea, because, I think of opportunities here. Single family is a big house, speaking from a single family, not that big household.
Well, it's almost as big as yours.
It's not, it's much bigger.
I'd like to ask
but,
Brian,
But
what
you
are
know
your
what
thoughts
if
on
on
this?
Broadway wanted, like, what if on Broadway's office wanted to go on
Yeah.
the bottom, and then you had somebody living upstairs, or, there could be some cool opportunities for some things maybe outside of the realm of strictly single
Well, and
family.
we do see a lot of that in a lot of other communities, we see more of it, but where those old areas, you've got the doctor office or the interior decorator's office downstairs, and then up, or side by
And
side.
they live upstairs or something.
And that,
Yep.
I think that seeds neighborhoods just as well as.
Oh, my God.
Well, and the other piece of it too is the historical preservation of the property. And this,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you just kind of open this up to anybody, you can lose a lot of historical character in the property, and that's the component that we really like to preserve. When you look throughout the neighborhood, a lot of these properties, they have those elements of them, that have kind of been covered up through conversion into multifamily units. And
Yes.
that's a really critical piece that we'd like to see restored in a lot of these.
Well, I agree with that. I think some of this architectural detail that you can just even see from here, imagine, the rest of them, we've lost a lot of those over time too.
And I haven't lived in Green Bay that long, but when I look at, the Astor Park neighborhood, I mean, I would expect that, a lot of these homes were probably in similar condition.
Oh, yeah.
They took that one Catalyst home, and, I mean, to see that entire neighborhood is completely transformed.
So are you getting positive vibes on it then, Brian, also, in the discussions that you've had with other possibilities for that block?
Yeah, I mean, our role in this is really to be a catalyst to connect buyers and property owners, and to kind of bring different resources to the table to make that happen. So as an organization, we are looking this year to potentially add some staff to commit time to this program in particular, I mean, among others, but it's one of those things that as an organization, we're committed to seeing the development of the housing occur within this neighborhood. So it's not just, kind of hot air and fluff that we're feeding you guys. I mean, we're gonna stick some investment dollars behind this, and it's really critical for us to have important partners at the table. So when Ken talks about, having a much more comprehensive plan to how we approach this neighborhood development, the city's a key player in that part of it, and we'd really like to see them, and you guys kind of, support us in that process.
Okay, we're ready for a vote?
Well, do you have any desire to modify your motion to direct staff to bring back options
Yes.
for what?
Yes. I make a motion that we purchase it, but then have staff research it and come back with alternatives on the best development.
Sounds good.
Is that fair?
Okay, Joe, if that's okay.
Joe, your second's still good?
Right on.
Very good, we have a motion and a second then to ask staff to come back to us with some additional options for that property. Those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed, carried.
Yeah.
Good. Adjourn. Kevin?
That is all the items. Can I go by and pick up some of those shorts that were just?
Let's say there's another one I looked at. Dispatch doors. There's some really nice ones in there. The motion in a second conversion.
I think adjournment's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
cost to replace these. We gotta find a way.
Yeah, that's,